Are you ready? It's coast to coast, we're here and we representing. Tom join her foundation. We about to jump right in it. The body is woke. HBCUs, let's go. Tradition, trendsetting. Let's do it for the culture. HBCU, big one, see.
This is Thomas Joyner Jr., and welcome to another episode of the Tom Joyner Foundation presents HBCU Ubiquity. Question: what is the official sister school of Morehouse College? Believe it or not, the answer to that is Bennett College in Greensboro, North Carolina. Bennett was founded in Greensboro, North Carolina on August 1st, 1873 for the purpose of educating freed men and women. In fact, Bennett was a co-ed institution until 1926, when it then moved to become one of currently only two all-female HBCUs, the other, of course, being Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia. The official relationship between Bennett and Morehouse is an extension of the bond between then Bennett College President Dr. David Dallas Jones and then Morehouse College President Dr. Benjamin E. Mays. The two visited each other's campuses so often that a mutual respect and admiration grew, leading them to eventually formalize their relationship of brother-sister school between the two institutions that remains in place to this day. In 2019, Bennett currently has a little less than 700 students. Among the many academic offerings that they offer to their students, who are also known as Bennett Bells, include engineering, various types of engineering, formed through a partnership that they have with North Carolina A&T University, another HBCU that's located in Greensboro, North Carolina. Elementary education for grades kindergarten through 6, and the Center for Entrepreneurship Studies. Like many HBCUs, Bennett has seen its share of challenges over the last several years. In December of 2018, SACS voted to remove Bennett from its list of accredited colleges and universities. In fact, let me take a quick second to digress about SACS. SACS stands for Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. For those unaware, SACS is the main accrediting body for all colleges and universities in the United States. They're located south of Washington, D.C., and west of the Mississippi River. In other words, any college or university that you can think of located in the Carolinas, Kentucky, Tennessee, Florida, all the way west to Texas, falls under SACS jurisdiction. So in December 2018, after years of first placing Bennett on academic warning, then academic probation, SACS finally voted to remove Bennett from accreditation, unless a few benchmarks were met. Most notably, Bennett was tasked with showing $5 million on its books by February 1st of 2019. Their president, Dr. Dawkins, went above and beyond this mandate and actually was able to show $8.2 million plus on the books by that date. However, a week later, SACS upheld this ruling and chose to keep Bennett from being accredited. A week after that, a judge in Atlanta, Georgia, overturned SACS' ruling, and as a result, Bennett will be able to maintain its accreditation through the end of 2019. During this week's episode, we will be talking with both current and former administrators of Bennett College to discuss what led to this point and where does Bennett go from here. And in the next segment, I'll be joined by Dr. Billy C. Hawkins, president of Talladega College, a private HBCU that's located in Talladega, Alabama. Dr. Hawkins will be discussing with me how a small private HBCU like Bennett College regains its accreditation. And as you will hear, that's a topic that Dr. Hawkins is very familiar with. So thank you for coming by to listen to today's episode. And again, welcome to HBCU Ubiquity.
Before we get back to the HBCU Ubiquity podcast, let's take a look at some Tom Joyner Foundation fundraising highlights. Here's an example of TJF's success.
Hi, my name is Dante Webb. a junior majoring in physics at Dillard University. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to the Dillard University, Dallas Alumni Chapter, and Tom Joyner Foundation for providing me with this scholarship. After graduation, I will attend Georgia Tech to obtain my master's in mechanical engineering.
To donate to the Tom Joyner Foundation, just log on to www.tomjoynerfoundation.org, and you can help a student continue their education at a HBCU.
Welcome back to HBCU Ubiquity. This is Thomas Joyner Jr., and I'm joined today by the president of Bennett College, Dr. Phyllis Dawkins. How's everything at Bennett today, Dr. Dawkins?
Everything is fine. It's a good day here in Greensboro. The sun is out. It's not too hot and not too cold. So we're doing fine today.
How are those Bennett Bells doing?
The Bells are doing well. Students are trying to wrap up the semester, get ready to move into March, and get ready for our big event, Ebony Soul. Similar, that's what we have in place of homecoming because we don't have sports on campus. So Ebony Soul weekend is a big week for our students.
And when will this year's Ebony Soul weekend be?
It's the second week in April.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What do you have lined up for this year's Ebony Soul?
Just a variety of different events, from community service to social engagement types of activities. Every day there's something different. But it starts on a Saturday and it ends on another Saturday. So every day is different. All
the things that the Bennett Bells are known for.
That's right.
Dr. Dawkins, can you give the listeners of this podcast a brief overview of the history of Bennett College?
Well, Bennett was founded in 1873, and it started as a co-educational institution, and it's one of the few HBCUs that was actually founded by emancipated slaves. And so it was founded in the basement of a church known as St. Matthew's Methodist Episcopal Church, and the new name now is St. Matthew's Methodist Church, and it was later supported by the Freedmen's Aid and Southern Education Society of the Methodist Episcopal Church. And so it slowly moved on to the place where we are now by a man named Lyman Bennett, who made major contributions to the establishment of the first building on campus. And then in 1926, it became a school for women. And so we are celebrating 146 years of existence.
You know, Dr. Dawkins, until you said that, I never knew that Bennett College was basically one of those for us, by us schools. I did not know that they were founded by free slaves.
Yes, it's one of the few. I've worked at 5 historically black colleges, but this is the first one where the finding of the institution is connected back to emancipated slaves.
Wow. So what happened? So what happened in terms of the events that led to Bennett losing its accreditation in December?
The fiscal stability happens over time. And as you know, many of our institutions are low resource institutions. And Bennett College had been experiencing some financial stability problems for a number of years. When I was hired as the president, I inherited the problem of fiscal instability at that time. Of course, as president, it's been my goal to bring us back to fiscal stability. So for a number of years, we've had some financial challenges up and down, good years, bad years. And so now I think we're on the upswing with our successful Stand With Bennett campaign.
And speaking of that, how were you able to meet and exceed the February fundraising goals that were imposed upon you and Bennett College by Saks?
Well, number one, we had to be very, very transparent that we had a problem. We needed, at the time, we thought we needed at least $5 million. And we had about 55 to 60 days to raise those funds. And the majority of those funds really came in at the last minute. But once we kicked off the campaign through social media, the funds started coming in. And it took a different twist in terms of the traditional way of raising funds. So we've received a lot of grassroots dollars from people in our communities, individuals giving us $1 to up to 100,000, even eventually $1 million. And then we had a lot of faith-based groups. We went from about 18 faith-based groups given to us to over 166. And I could say the same thing for sororities and fraternities, and some competition going on between AKAs and Deltas and Omegas and Alphas. So those organizations pitched in and donated the links. Boulay, I can just go on and on about the number of organizations that stepped up to donate and give and support Bennett College.
Dr. Dawkins, I want to just pause right quick because you said something at the beginning of that answer that really struck me, and you said you had to be transparent up front. As you're probably aware, that's not a common trait amongst HBCUs that are in crisis mode, and that's often a complaint amongst alumni about not knowing until it was too late. You were transparent, and that's very bold and commendable.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It takes a lot of courage to be very transparent. But, when you're on your last leg and you're trying to save an institution, and people are just not going to give just to give. They want to know, just as you're asking me questions now, they just want to know what happened, what do you need to reestablish yourself. So Bennett was a symbol in many ways for many HBCUs because a lot of us are low-resource institutions.
And with that said, Dr. Dawkins, what do you need to reestablish yourselves?
I still need to build my endowment so I'm not here again. I need to increase our scholarship funds, increase funds. We need to provide more resources to students so that they complete their education in 4 years. So I need gap money, and that gap money is defined as money. The money that's left over between the amount of federal financial aid you get and the cost to attend. And that's based on an individual's family contributions. One way to look at it is based on your tax statement and what you can afford. And so many of our students can't afford that gap money. They can find it for the first year where parents and family or friends are donating, but they're not able to donate for 4 years. And so trying to find money, whether it's gap money or scholarship funds or scholarship money, I need that kind of money, those types of funds, to ensure that I'm offering a quality education that students can stay here and graduate.
And for the sake of the listeners to this podcast, and I think you would agree, Dr. Dawkins, that gap funding, scholarship funding, endowment building funds are not a problem unique to Bennett College. Those are actually needs that all of our HBCUs have to this day.
Yes, we do. And one of the things I learned in the campaign is that really to stabilize our institutions going forward, it would be great if everyone was to donate funds to our endowment, which allows us to operate on the interest of our endowment, and that helps stabilize us even more, and also help us provide continuous gap funding funds to ensure those students can start school and graduate from college. That's probably number one. We need people to invest in the HBCUs. We need people to give to our endowments. Bennett's endowment is just between $12 and $13 million versus I graduated from HBCU, Johnson C. Smith, also went to Ohio State and Michigan, and those endowments at Michigan and Ohio State are in the billions. And so I'm the small, under-resourced institution, and I only have $12 million.
And also, for the sake of our podcast listeners, what they may not know is that this is not the first time that you've been involved in an HBCU that's been in a crisis. After all, you were at Dillard University after Hurricane Katrina. How did the experience at Dillard prepare you for what you face now at Bennett?
Well, actually, the preparation for what I do now started when I was at Johnson C. Smith. where I worked there for 28 years and learned a lot about accreditation and assessment. And so I was able, when I was recruited by Dillard, to come there shortly after Hurricane Katrina, because they were also going through some challenges with SATs. I was able to use those skills I gained at Johnson Smith to help Dillard deal with a number of recommendations, many more than what we have now at Bennett College. So I'm dealing with one, and at Dillard we had a number, and we were able to clear those accreditation sanctions, and then not sanctions, but those recommendations at that time. And the same thing when I went to Cheney, I moved from SATs to middle states, and we were able to successfully get Cheney through another 10-year reaffirmation at the time I was there.
Dr. Dawkins, what are your plans, or what are the plans for Bennett College for the 2019-2020 academic school year?
Oh, well, we're gearing up. Well, the board has put together a re-engineering committee that's going to look at how we can reimagine Bennett, how we can begin to look at new programs and be prepared to offer those new programs once we get off probation, how we can redesign existing academic programs, how we can work as a team to identify potential donors to help us build our endowment. And we really need to change our business model on campus. And so those are some of the things that we're going to do. We're getting ready for a freshman class. We have over 4,000 applications, over 2,000 students accepted. And so we're looking forward to many of those students enrolling in on campus next fall.
Are you still accepting applications for the fall?
Yes, we're still accredited. We're accredited by SATs. As you know, we filed a lawsuit to retain our accreditation. And so, yes, we're still accredited by SATs.
So would you encourage students to continue to apply to Bennett to enroll in the fall semester?
Yes, we're encouraging students to attend. We still have a fully operational institution. We still are able to offer services. So we're still operating business as usual. But we do plan to emphasize a little bit more in student life next year and continue to raise funds to increase student life on campus. But yes, we are open for business, and we are still accepting students to come. In fact, one student said she's coming because she wants to be a part of the fight.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Mm-hmm. Dr. Dawkins, on behalf of HBCU Ubiquity, the Tom Joyner Foundation, HBCU alumni all across the country, we applaud and salute your steadfastness and diligence to attending to Bennett College during this time. On behalf of all of us, I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me on your show, and they can still make donations on our site.
All right. This is Thomas Joyner Jr., and we'll be back with HBCU Ubiquity.
Hi, my name is Gianna Gray, a sophomore chemistry major at the illustrious Fisk University from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This scholarship will greatly benefit me as I continue my matriculation here at Fisk so I can accomplish my distal goal of becoming a pediatric nurse practitioner. Thank you, Fisk University and the Tom Joyner Foundation.
Welcome back to HBCU Ubiquity. This is Thomas Joyner Jr., and I'm joined by the president of Talladega College, Dr. Billy Hawkins. How are you today, Dr. Hawkins?
Tom, I'm doing great. Thanks for having us on your show. Appreciate the invite.
Thanks for coming on. We appreciate you being here. So what does accreditation mean to a college, and why is it so important?
Well, first of all, in the United States, colleges are accredited, and of course, there's several different regional accrediting bodies. As an example, when you get up into the eastern part of the country, you've got accrediting bodies up in that area. I think it's Middle States, and then when you get out into the Midwest, you have North Central, and then in the southern region, which Talladega College is a part of, the SACS COC, which is the Southern Association for Colleges and Schools, Commission on Colleges. And so that's so when you look at your southern schools from Texas to Florida, so all the schools in between those that are in those states are part of the SACS COC. And so when you look at accreditation, of course, you go through the entire process of looking at your entire institution, from everything that you do, from in the classroom, outside the classroom, the physical plant, your finances, your academics, your institution, effectiveness. That's all covered within your accreditation standards. And of course, that's all sanctioned through the U.S. Department of Education. And so that's the process that we currently function under.
And what does it mean to a college to have accreditation, or to not have accreditation, but to have accreditation? What does that mean for a college? And in plain talk.
Well, first of all, the U.S. Department of Education, if you're going to receive Title IV funding, and that's your student, federal financial aid, you must be regionally accredited and accredited by a regional accrediting body. And so that's an important link for us, because without our students receiving federal funding, then certainly they would not be able to afford to go to school. Mm-hmm. And then number two, we wouldn't be able to operate as an institution if we weren't, if we weren't accredited or receiving federal funding, because that's very, very crucial for any institution of higher learning.
Do all the regional accrediting bodies have uniform standards, or are they different from region to region?
Well, there's similarities from region to region. I actually have worked in three of the nationally accrediting bodies. I've worked in middle states, and that's, of course, I think that goes up into the New York state area. And I've been in the Midwest when I worked out in the state of Michigan, and that was under North Central. And then, of course, being in the South, I was at St. Paul's College. I was at Mississippi Valley State University, and of course, I was president at Texas College, and then now here at Talladega. And so I've worked, I've worked under, all three of those specific three, accrediting agencies. And so there's, clearly, there's some similarities, but then I would say, because I've had experience in three of them, that there's some difference, in the three. And I would say, if in looking at the three, SACS COC is, it's a stringent process that you go through, and I, clearly, and I'm not specifically, because I've not worked in the other two in a while, but the SACS COC, it's a peer review process, and so that can be questioned from time to time.
What does it mean for a college when the accreditation is revoked?
Well, Tom, of course, you're aware that I took over an institution in Texas. Texas College was not accredited when I became the president back in 2000. And so, we had to go through, I don't know all the specifics, prior to my arrival at Texas College, but there was a reapplication process, and then you had to get back to what they called as the candidacy status, and of course at that time, the Texas College is affiliated with the CME Church. Mm-hmm. And that school was not receiving Title IV funding because it was not accredited. And the CME Church stepped up big. I think it was they brought over $10, $11 million.
Wow.
To keep the institution going. And so at the time that I arrived there, we worked hard to get back into SACS. I think it was SACS at the time. And so it was a process that you go through. Not an easy process, because at that time, Texas College was the only, for sure, HBCU to have lost its accreditation to actually be reinstated into SACS. Of course, today SACS COC. And at that time, we were the only school in the southern region to have lost accreditation, and then we were successful in getting the accreditation back. Of course, now it was a process. We had to raise a lot of money, and we had to meet the standards. At that time, the financial standard was called Condition Eligibility 13, and once we were able to demonstrate our financial stability, then we were able to successfully get back into SACS COC. But it was a process. It was a grueling process, and it was a difficult process. And so when one loses their accreditation, it's a tough process to get back in. And it's a tough process.
Would you say that the process could take years?
Yes, the process, and it did. It took us a while at Texas College to get reinstated, but we went after it pretty strong to raise the money to prove the standards, and so it could take years to get back in. And again, it's a peer review process, Tom, and so sometimes it can be difficult when it's a peer review process. So what we always hope, specifically as HBCUs, we always hope that when the teams are put together that come and visit your campus, that it is a team of your peers, meaning that it's peers that's coming from similar in size, peers that are coming from institutions that are similar types of institutions, and that peers are coming from institutions that understand that are private institutions, and peers that are coming from institutions who have a clear understanding when it talks about your enrollment driven, and when you are enrollment driven, which means that your enrollment drives your finances. I don't care if it's a historically black institution or predominantly white institution, because private and you're private. Many schools, if you line us all up, you would see that we all, it's a challenge today with enrollments and with finances, and so it's a tough process, but the real issue here is it's a peer review process, and that sometimes can be a little dicey when you talk about peers and who's put on these teams. So we hope that when these teams are put together, that they are a representation, of individuals understanding our, especially HBCUs. I mean, we come from a long history. When you look at 100 in Talladega's case, 151 years old, and then when you look at all of our private small institutions, there's 37 UNCF schools today. Some have lost their accreditation, but when you look at our schools today, it's important that folks understand our school's history. And if you go back in history, many of our schools, it's always been a struggle. but we've always made our way. And when we've received, our schools over the years have received, funds from your father's show, from the Tom Joyner Foundation, and so the fundraising is always we've always had to reach out. When you look at the dollar amount that that your father's show has produced to our schools, up in the millions of dollars over the years, which has always been important. United Negro College Fund. Without support from the United Negro College Fund, without support from Tom Joyner Foundation, without our Title III support that we receive, from the federal government, probably our schools wouldn't be around today. And so all of those factors are important that it's clearly understood when it comes to private education. I think some discussion needs to take place, in my opinion, at the federal level as to continuing to attach financial aid or Title IV funding, to the accrediting process. Okay, now that's me speaking. But I've been a president 18 years, and I've been in education, 43 years, and so I think that I think that's something that needs to be reviewed in terms of do you attach federal aid to accreditation? Now, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be accountability there. But I think that the whole process, it really needs to be reviewed, in my opinion. And I don't know what that is, but I think there needs to be some discussion about, student federal financial aid, how you tie that to, the accreditation process, and in-house evaluation. So all of these different regional accrediting agencies, they have their standards as to how they evaluate, financial viability, and you have it in all these different regions. And so, I've been through it with Texas College, and I've been through it here at Talladega College successfully. And I've gone through I think I went through 2 or 3 in Texas 10-year reaffirmation. I've gone through 2 here and just went through my second one here just back in October, and with what I believe was success in getting through with no recommendation on the on an undergrad experience. And so
congratulations.
Yeah, and so it's a process. I've been through the process. I've chaired quite a few SAC COC committees. I've chaired some of those visits. Had to do with review of finances and some not. But so I mean that's kind of my thought in terms of the whole accrediting process. But I think that really has to be reviewed, because when you're dealing with, again, it's a peer review process, and depending on who's on those teams, oftentimes will determine what the outcome is going to be.
What kind of words of wisdom do you have for Bennett College right now, and/or words of wisdom for their alumni?
Well, Bennett. First of all, I would say congratulations on a phenomenal job of raising over $9 million in less than a 30 to 60 day period. I didn't do that at Texas College, I can tell you that. But our numbers got up there to get us back to where we needed to be. And so, and what a great effort that they put forth, and what a great, kudos to the United States of America, because they received funding from a lot of different areas, higher education, private business, alumni. So what I would say to them, I mean, they and clearly you have to understand that institution is, they're in litigation, from what I understand right now. And I know that the alumni, and I know that the board there, administration, I mean, they're going, they're it's about survival, so they're going to fight the fight. And it's a great institution. It's one of our UNCF institutions. We don't want to see any of our institutions go away.
That's right.
Clearly, we don't want to see, because we've had institutions to lose their accreditation and not, and they weren't successful in getting it back. And as I indicated to you, that Texas College was successful back in 2000, 2001, 2, in that era, during that time frame. And if you check the record, Edward Waters had lost theirs, and through litigation, they were able to get it right back. And I don't know all the specifics, but I think Bennett's, the president, Dawkins, she's done a great job, and so they're gonna debate those issues in court. And the school has to continue to do what they think is best, to try to fight to, because right now, they have the accreditation until it's, and with the injunction, and until it gets reviewed. Because I think that they've gone through the appeal process, and so I don't know what all the next steps are, in with it. I don't know all the specifics about their situation. But the alumni and administration, they got to continue to fight the fight, and we just pray that they're, in the end, that they're successful, and holding on to their accreditation.
Well, Dr. Hawkins, thank you for your insight and your clarity. This has been very much appreciated. And we'll be back with HBC Ubiquity.
Before we get back to the HBC Ubiquity podcast, let's take a look at some Tom Joyner Foundation fundraising highlights. Here's an example of TJF's success.
My name is Connor Daly. I'm a sophomore at Dillon University, majoring in urban studies and public policy from Chicago, Illinois. I'm grateful for the scholarship from the Dillon University National Alumni Association and the Tom Joyner Foundation. After graduating from Dillon University, I plan to go to graduate school and receive a master's degree in public administration.
To donate to the Tom Joyner Foundation, just log on to www.tomjoynerfoundation.org, and you can help a student continue their education at a HBCU.
Welcome back to HBC Ubiquity. This is Thomas Joyner Jr. Since our inception in 1998, the Tom Joyner Foundation has enjoyed a very long and productive partnership with Bennett College. In fact, over the last 20 years of our existence, the foundation has been able to raise and donate hundreds of thousands of dollars to Bennett College and its bells. In fact, full disclosure, during the early 2000s, up until Dr. Janetta B. Cole became president, I was actually a board member at Bennett College. You heard from Dr. Phyllis Dawkins, president of Bennett College, talk about its long and rich history. And I personally do not believe that she will squander or let that history go to waste. If anybody can lead Bennett College back to prominence, it's Dr. Dawkins. With all HBCU eyes on Bennett College right now, you've seen how she was able to generate that attention into much needed fundraising dollars. And as you already heard her say, Bennett College will, number one, is open and is accepting applications for the upcoming fall semester. And number 2, one way or another, Bennett College will be accredited by one and or another body throughout the entire academic 2019-2020 academic year. But it won't be easy. As you heard from Dr. Billy Hawkins, president of Talladega College, who's done this before, regaining accreditation is not impossible, but it's very difficult. It takes some time, it takes vision, and it takes some risk and some bold moves. And if anybody's equipped to do this for Bennett College, I believe it's Dr. Dawkins. The urgency that Bennett College is facing right now is not lost on HBCU alumni or the Tom Joyner Foundation. We have seen and witnessed too many HBCUs had to shutter its doors over the last couple years due to finances and or low enrollment. We only have 2 all-female HBCUs. Let's not go down to 1. Now is the time to stand with Bennett College. All HBCU alumni, including Bennett College alumni, have a profound interest in the restoration of the college. You can go to www.tomjoynerfoundation.org to make a donation. And please remember that 100% of your gift will be donated and forwarded straight to Bennett College. Also, you can help us continue this conversation on social media. HBCU Ubiquity on all platforms: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. And by the way, that's HBCU Ubiquity. HBCUBIQUITY. Thank you for listening to this podcast, and please subscribe to hear more episodes. A new episode will be published each and every Tuesday. For more information about HBCUs or to support them, this podcast, or to support a student attending an HBCU, please visit us at www.tomjoynerfoundation.org. Thank you for listening to this episode of HBCU Ubiquity.